my name is Elizabeth. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and I believe that I've been contacted. It's been telepathic. However, these are not beings that are in an actual flesh and bone body. They're light beings. They seem to me to be plasma beings. I feel like I'm getting downloads that they're plasma beings, that they somehow carry consciousness. So my question to you, Bashar, is this true? Can this be happening to me? I see it in my backyard, I feel them, but nobody's listening to me. Is this really happening? Is this true? Can this be happening?
Yes, but all you may be seeing are the apparitions of your spirit guides or soul family attempting to say hello. So you can allow yourself through meditative practices, maybe even yogic breathing, condition yourself to be able to perceive them a little bit more clearly. So we would suggest that for you. It will center you, it will raise your vibration, and therefore you may meet them halfway so that you can perceive them more clearly, because obviously they are attempting to help you do that, to help you on that journey with that ability.
Hello, Bashar. Much love and gratitude to you. Thank you for having me.
It is our passion and our pleasure.
I have 2 questions for you.
Yes.
My first question, a few months ago, I had a dream I was in a house in the middle of a wheat field. Nothing around except the house. I remember going outside to the east side of the yard when I was approached by 2 beings. I couldn't make out their form or appearance. They escorted me to the west side and handed me a baby, then disappeared. As I held the baby up close, I realized that it was a synthetic life. It appeared semi-human, but it looked and felt synthetic. I remember looking at him and questioning how could this little being not have a soul. I recall touching its synthetic skin and it felt very soft. As I looked into its eyes, we began to communicate telepathically. I knew then that he was my son and felt profound love for him. I remember holding him tight against my heart, realizing that he did have a soul and that we are connected. The 2 beings then approached and said that the child needed to leave.
Yes.
I feared I would never see him again.
You will.
I remember crying as I held him close. I told the little one that I loved him very much, that I will always be his father and to never forget me, that we will always be connected through our hearts.
Yes.
I felt such a loss when the beings took him from my arms. I remember crying as they walked away.
All right, it's only temporary. You will meet again.
And that was one of my questions. And is he my child, and what type of life form is he?
It's a hybrid child. It's just that the synthetic idea came across because you are not used to the vibration of the hybrids. But then you did get used to it and saw that the being, in fact, does have a soul.
Yes, and I felt a profound connection with him. As I looked in the eyes, the more I looked into his eyes, the more the love grew.
Yes. Now, part of the idea of perceiving it as synthetic is also because the hybrid beings and many extraterrestrials are also connected to what you would call AI intelligence. So you might have been picking up on that and understand that AI intelligence doesn't necessarily have a soul in the same way that you mean that word, but because of that connection, you may have picked up upon that quality. Nevertheless, you're dealing with a hybrid child, and you will meet again.
Fantastic. I have one more question for you.
Yes.
There are some of us within our private contact group having encounters with a group of Pleiadians that call themselves the Plejarians, either in the dream state or through meditation.
Yes, it's actually Plejarians.
Plejarians. I recently had a dream that 3 triangular ships were passing overhead.
Yes.
Each craft appeared semi-physical, as though they were entering our physicality from another dimension.
They are.
This is the second time I've had a dream with these particular craft. In my dream, we try to photograph them with our cell phones, but none of us can do it. We keep dropping our phones and not able to focus on the ships. Then I'm instantly taken inside one of the craft. I recall seeing male and female beings dressed in blue uniforms. Then I'm back outside observing the ships as they pass over the horizon. Suddenly, I sense an attempt by one of the female beings trying to communicate with me. She seems to be using another being as a conduit to facilitate the connection. She tells me that she cannot communicate with me directly because we are at different frequencies.
Yes.
She then shows me a 3D picture of this metal rod-like structure with threaded ends, each having different thread sizes. I remember trying to insert different screws to fit the ends without any success. I felt this to be symbolic of a type of conduit, and connecting the right screws would allow for a common ground for communication.
Yes.
And my questions are, did I make contact with the Plejarians? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes. Pleiadians, Plejarians, same difference.
Plejarians, okay. And did I spend time inside their ship? And what's your take on the conduit?
Yes. The conduit is a symbol of the idea of making an attempt to connect, but finding something that would act as a connector between your vibration and their vibration.
And what
So
would
it's
that
the way
be?
it's the way you interpreted it, but it's also part of their technology,
And the screws symbolize
making the connection, finding the right way to make the connection.
any suggestions on that, Bashar?
Open your heart with unconditional love the next time you may have this kind of an encounter, and you will find the right connection.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Much love and gratitude to you, and thank you again for having me.
It is our passion and our pleasure, our unconditional love to you as well. Avail. Good day.
Good day. Thank you.
Hello, dear Bashar. My name is Nadezhda. I have another question about sudden death. What is the mechanism during a sudden death? Does the person know it will leave the body? Is it aware? How is he convinced to leave suddenly his body? Or is the soul being pulled by somebody out? And by whom? When is it asked if it wants to cross over, before or after dying? Thank you very much. Avail. Much love.
Every soul determines its exit point. So at the time when the soul has determined that its life path has achieved what it needed to achieve in that life, that physical reality, it simply exits. No one is pulling it out. The soul itself is determining that it's done. Now, the exit point has a little bit of a window to it. In other words, it can be within a few years on either side of the actual exit point. So a soul could leave a little bit early or a little bit later, depending upon what it wishes to achieve or if there's unfinished business. But the idea is that every soul determines its exit point, and at that exit point, generally speaking, it will leave of its own accord. It will simply recall itself. It will wake up to the fact that its life path is done according to what it agreed to experience. Sort of like setting an alarm clock in your physical world. It will wake up when the alarm clock goes off. No one needs to pull it out. It simply transitions back into its soul awareness and is guided and met by its own soul family and its friends and councils and angels and spirit guides and what have you as a timed meeting by agreement, according to what the soul set for itself by agreement. Now, the physical mind may not realize it's about to leave, but the soul knows when its time is up, according to what it initially agreed to experience. So, no real surprise there to the soul. To the physical mind, yes, it may seem surprising. But in a flash of a second, the soul will remember, oh, this is where I decided to exit. And here I am, back in my soul self perspective.
Hello, Bashar. How are you?
Perfect, and you?
I am great, thank you. It is an honor and a pleasure to speak with you today.
Always a passion and a pleasure for us as well.
That's wonderful. My gratitude for your transmissions and the formula, they have helped me so much, so my appreciation.
All right. What would you like to discuss this day?
I would like to talk about time. You've
Yes.
mentioned that all time is here and now. However, we experience time in a linear fashion.
Yes.
Why is that?
So that you can experience the process of change, the creation and discovery of new points of view, which cannot be experienced in a timeless state when you are aware of everything. So you create the forgetfulness that allows you to understand that you know everything and are connected to everything, so that you can play out the process of discovering a new perspective of yourself, because that is how creation expands, that is how the soul grows, because the structure of existence never changes, because everything is here and now. But the relationship to that structure, the experience of that structure, the perspective of that structure is what always constantly changes, which is what allows creation to expand. So you're playing your part in the expansion of creation by creating the experience of linear time so that you can discover something new from a new perspective through the process of discovery, through the process of change, rather than things simply being instantaneously there. Does that answer your question sufficiently?
Let me ask a follow-up question. So
Yes.
from the process of change, is that from remembering our past and thinking about how we want to be right now in our present, and so that's bringing up change?
Yes. By making the comparison that you have created in linear time with the idea of a progression from past through present to future, you give yourself the perspective necessary to experience a process of change.
Okay, so
in that process, you learn many different lessons that you otherwise wouldn't learn in the same way by being in instantaneous existence.
Okay, so one of our experiences with coming down into a physical body, or having the soul create a physical body for us, is for us to experience that. So if we wanted to experience time the way you do in our physical bodies, is that even possible?
To some degree you can, but it will still be only that which is relevant for your physical experience, although you can expand it a bit. But let me give you another analogy. Look at it from a story structure point of view. How would you feel about a story that you were eager to hear or to see if it began once upon a time and then suddenly said, and they lived happily ever after? You would go, well, what happened in the middle?
Right.
So, by having physical linear reality, you get to experience the process of getting to happily ever after from once upon a time. Otherwise, there's no story, there's no adventure, there's no lesson, there's no learning, there's no growing, there's no changing.
Okay, that makes sense. So this might be related to it, but a maybe different perspective. In a previous transmission, you were discussing 9 levels of consciousness, and you talked about how the oversoul does not require a lot of space, and it experiences time in a multi-dimensional way.
Yes, what we call simultaneous time. Now, in physical reality, you experience linear time. On the soul, individual soul level, you experience intermittent time, because you can experience either linear time or instantaneous time. But on the oversoul level, it's instantaneous, simultaneous time, where you have multiple experiences being experienced all at once. In the same way, again, by simplistic analogy, as if you were watching thousands of television screens and capable of understanding every single story being told on every single one of those screens all at once. That's the oversoul perspective.
Okay. And then what did you mean by it doesn't need a lot of space?
Well, the idea of collapsing time down to an instantaneous single moment is the same thing as your Einstein discovered, because space-time is one basic thing, just two different, shall we say, effects of the same idea. So collapsing the time collapses the space. No space is required, because again, space is also an illusion. It's a real experience that you can create, but it doesn't really exist in the way that you think of it as an actual place. Distance is an illusion. There's no distance between anything. Everything is here and now. Therefore, it's collapsing space as well as time, because that's the here component of the here and now. If now is collapsed, so is here.
That makes sense. Okay. So speaking of the oversoul, you described it as the hand and the fingers as the individual souls.
Yes.
Does each individual soul have multiple physical beings associated with it?
Over the course of time, it can appear that way, and that's what you typically refer to from your linear perspective as reincarnation. Because the soul, being an energy sphere, creates the body within itself out of certain vibrations that represent the challenge that that soul wishes to experience to help it grow. When the soul returns to its full form, its full shape, in other words, when the physical body has quote-unquote died or expanded back to the idea of the soul perspective, then it can choose different vibrations to create a different personality, to have a different experience, linearly speaking. Therefore, you could say that that is really the way reincarnation works, but the idea is that every new personality also has a different soul, because the configuration of vibrational patterns within the soul that created that different body had to also be different, and therefore it is, in a sense, a different soul. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. And so
it just depends on the perspective, subjectively, that you're coming from when you describe this process as to how you experience it.
Okay. So are these different beings from the same soul? Are they're in different realities at the same time?
Oh, you're talking about parallel realities.
Okay.
That's a little bit different than the idea of the reincarnational realities that we just described. It's a type of parallel reality, but there are actually multiple types of parallel reality. So again, it depends on subjectively which type you're actually referring to. If you're referring to the idea that there may be what you would think of as multiple versions of yourself experiencing different pathways, that's one type of parallel reality structure.
Okay. From one soul, when it expands and then it contracts and it creates another entity, is that, you mentioned that it could be a different personality, so it could be a different, it might not be me, it might be a different entity.
Oh yes, it's not you, it's a different entity. And the soul is different as well, because again, it's creating that different personality out of different vibratory frequencies within its energy. So in a sense, you can say from one perspective, yes, it's the same soul creating another physical body, but from another perspective, you could say, well, that's a different soul because it's made up of different energy patterns, because it's given different patterns to the physical body, and therefore those patterns don't exist within the soul anymore at that level. It's a different soul, because it's a different formula of vibrational frequencies in order to create that different, unique personality out of those different frequencies.
And then, do animals and humans come from, I know they're different, do they come from the same soul?
A soul is an individual thing.
Okay.
Animals have their own souls.
Okay.
Animals are connected to the angelic realm. They're not angels, but they come from the angelic realm because they are representative of unconditional love.
Okay, I appreciate it.
But animals have their own souls. They have their own life paths. They are intertwined with yours, but they have their own.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bashar. I appreciate your time today and all the information.
Our unconditional love to you as well. Aveo. Good day.
Hi Bashar, this is Marcus from Norway. I have a question about a theory that I developed 3 years ago, which relates to the ideas of ships and physics. If we were to put a consciousness at the center of a ship and then facilitate the development of the ship and its technology to properly reflect what a consciousness does most naturally, which is to go into a state of flow, then developing the different modules of every module of the ship according to that knowledge, would that cause the ship to go into a state of flow? And if so, would that cause the ship to pass the upper third density threshold and therefore go faster than the speed of light? Thank you. We love you. Avail.
Yes, depending upon the material that you're working with. It's not going to happen for all materials. This is, in a sense, what happens with the ships that we use, is that they are crystallized versions of our higher minds. So, yes, what you're saying is true, and it raises the vibration above and beyond the threshold of physical reality when it is imprinted with that vibration and unlocked from any particular physical universe. It allows it to shift and reduce the idea of distance to nothing. So yes, in general you are correct, but only for certain kinds of technological materials and substances that would allow that to happen. Your physical world doesn't have those substances quite yet.
Greetings, Bashar. I suffer from aphantasia, the inability to visualize. I'm always in darkness. I can't see anything since I was about 8 years old. I went to a Dolores Cannon session, and there was someone with me named Abel. That was his joke, short for ability. And it was taken away from me so that I can send up all this information in its purest form, not boxed up. But the problem is I'm sad about that because I can't picture anything. Faces, people, places, everything's new for me every day, and I embrace that. But my concern is that going to hinder me at all from reaching a higher frequency, a higher elevation? Because I want that, I need that. So if you could guide me in my journey, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Aphantasia will not hinder you one little bit. You just have to use your imagination to create the images that you feel are necessary in a different way. Maybe learn to draw them, or create a collection of pictures that you can look at physically in your world, which will be perfectly fine substitutes for the idea of not necessarily holding them in your imagination or your mind. So be creative with the idea of how to create pictures that represent what you need them to represent in whatever way, shape, or form your creativity and imagination so desires. Take advantage of what's available to you in your physical reality to replace that system with something physical. It will not inhibit you one bit from